Welcome to my live teaching learning session of Principles of Microeconomics, course code BECC 131, part 3. As you know that in last session you have done theory of demand. Theory of demand defines the relationship between demand and price. Price, due to rise in price, demand decreases, and due to fall in price, demand increases. There is an inverse relationship between quantity demanded and its price. Elasticity of demand. This topic is also related with theory of demand. Elasticity of demand. In this unit, you will do today meaning of elasticity of demand, types of elasticity. Third topic is degrees of price elasticity of demand. Next is factors affecting of elasticity of demand. Next is measuring methods of elasticity of demand, and last is importance of elasticity of demand. Today we will discuss all these topics in detail. Now, what is the meaning of elasticity of demand? The word elasticity shows variability or changeability in demand. As you know that demand is inversely related with price level. Due to rise in price, demand falls, and due to fall in price, demand rises. Demand for a good depends upon its price, income of the consumer, and price of related goods. You have done in last session all these factors who affects the theory of demand. Elasticity of demand indicates how much quantity demanded of a good will change with change in its price. If demand changes or demand varies due to change in its price, that is called price elasticity of demand. Demand can be changed by the change in income level of the consumer also. Because if income of the consumer increases, you can purchase more goods, your demand can increase. If income of the consumer falls, your purchasing power will also fall and your demand will decrease. And as you know that goods are of three types: necessary goods, inferior goods, and normal goods. In case of necessary goods, income does not affect the demand for necessary goods, because necessary goods are very compulsory, which is necessary for our survival. We can't avoid to consumption avoid the consumption of that goods. For example, necessary goods are like wheat, rice, sugar, salt, water. These things are necessary goods. Income does not affect the demand for necessary goods. And normal goods are those goods which demand increases due to increase in income of the consumer, and which demand decreases due to fall in the income of the consumer. So income of the consumer also affects our demand. And as you know that inferior goods are those goods which are inversely related with the level of income of the consumer. In inferior goods, we take like raw jute, raw cloth, or we take like toned milk. Toned milk is inferior because it is cheaper than other, or double toned, it is cheaper than full cream or full milk, full cream milk. So inferior goods demand always related to income level inversely. If income of the consumer increases, demand for inferior goods falls. And if income of the consumer falls, demand for inferior goods rises. Third is price of related goods. Related goods are of two types. one is substitute and other is complementary. Substitute goods are those goods which can use in place of each other. For example, like tea or coffee, like Coca-Cola or Pepsi. Okay, so these goods are substitute goods. If price of tea rises, then demand for coffee will also rise, but the demand for tea will fall. And complementary goods are those goods which are always used together. Without taking one thing, you can't use another thing, like car and petrol, pen and refill, needle and thread, camera and reel. All these goods are called complementary goods, which always used together. So demand affected by price of the commodity, income of the consumer, and price of related goods. But elasticity of demand indicates how much quantity demanded of a good will change due to change in its price or income of the consumer or price of related goods. In other words, elasticity of demand measures the percentage change or proportionate change in quantity demanded of a commodity due to percentage change in price. If demand totally affected by the change in its price, that is called price elasticity of demand. If our demand varies or shows percentage change in demand due to percentage change in income of the consumer, that is called income elasticity of demand. And cross elasticity of demand means when the price of it is related with complementary goods and substitute goods. If the price of tea increases, then demand for coffee will also increase or varies. When we discuss about price of related goods, how price of related goods affects the demand for substitute goods and complementary goods, then it is called cross elasticity of demand. It means there are three types of elasticity of demand. And these three types are number one is price elasticity of demand, second is income elasticity of demand, and third one is cross elasticity of demand, which is very important topics: price elasticity, income elasticity, and cross elasticity. Now, price elasticity of demand, what is this? Price elasticity of demand define or it shows the measurement of the responsiveness of quantity demanded to change in its price. Price elasticity, it is clear with its name that quantity demanded is affected by only by the change in its price. So price elasticity of demand is a measurement of the responsiveness or proportionate change or percentage change. You can write anything. Responsiveness of quantity demanded or percentage change in quantity demanded or proportionate change in quantity demanded due to change in its price. That is called price elasticity of demand. It is denoted by ED. ED is elasticity of demand. You can write also EP. E denotes elasticity and P denotes price. ED is equal or EP is equals to percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. It is called price elasticity of demand. Now next is income elasticity of demand. Income elasticity of demand is a measurement of the responsiveness of quantity demanded. You are seeing here that all the topics price elasticity of demand give same definition, but here is measurement of the responsiveness of quantity demanded due to change in its price. But the income elasticity of demand is a measurement of the responsiveness of quantity demanded to change in it in the income of the consumer. If income varies, then quantity demanded will also varies. So income elasticity of demand gives the percentage change in quantity demanded due to the percentage change in the income of the consumer. So instead of price, in case of income elasticity of demand, we will write here income of the consumer. Income is denoted in economics by Y. So income elasticity of demand is EY. E shows elasticity and Y denotes income of the consumer. We can write income elasticity of demand in this form: EY is equals to percentage change in quantity demanded due to percentage change in income. So formula is percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change or proportionate change in income of the consumer. Third type of elasticity of demand is cross elasticity of demand. Cross elasticity of demand depends upon the price of related goods. And as we discussed earlier, that related goods are of two types. One is substitute, other is complementary. Substitute goods can use in place of each other and complementary goods are always used together. So cross elasticity of demand is a measurement of the responsiveness of quantity demanded of X commodity. This X commodity may be tea and this X commodity may be car. If in case of substitute goods, we will talk about tea and coffee. And if we are discussing about complementary goods, then X commodity will be called car. And the commodity to change in its price, like price of petrol or price of coffee. So cross elasticity of demand is a measurement of the responsiveness of quantity demanded of X commodity due to the percentage change or proportionate change in the price of Y commodity, which is related goods like tea or coffee, and which may be complementary goods like car and petrol. We can write cross elasticity of demand by using this formula EC. Here E denotes elasticity and C denotes cross. Cross elasticity is EC is equals to percentage change in quantity demanded of a commodity of X divided by the percentage change in price of Y commodity. This X and Y should be written in this case because X and Y denotes that goods may be complementary or goods may be substitute. So in case of cross elasticity of demand, it is necessary to mention that price of Y commodity affects the demand for X commodity. Now next topic is degrees of price elasticity of demand. Degrees in sense what type of elasticity of demand may be exist. Elasticity of demand may be infinity. Elasticity of demand may be zero. Elasticity of demand may be unitary or equals to 1. Elasticity of demand may be less than 1 or may be more than 1. So degrees of price elasticity of demand is always 5. These 5 degrees are: one is perfectly elastic demand. If we say about that demand is elastic, what is the meaning of elastic? Elastic means variability or changeability. If demand can change due to change in its price, either due to change in its income of the consumer and price of related goods, then demand will be called elastic. If your demand can't change, if your demand can't vary, if your demand remains constant due to change in its price Due to change in income of the consumer and due to change in price of related goods, demand is not affected by these variables and these factors. That is called inelastic. As you know that rubber band is elastic and the thread is inelastic. You can't increase or decrease the length of the thread, but you can change. You can increase or decrease the rubber band. Some dresses are stretchable. Stretchable means you can increase or decrease the size of they can adjust according to the size of the person. That is called elastic. And inelastic means which have no chance of variability, no chance of variation or changeability. That is called inelastic. But if we discuss about elastic demand, it means demand can change. And if we say about inelastic demand, it means demand can't change. Unitary elastic demand is Unitary elastic demand refers to that demand when demand varies or demand changes at the same ratio by the change in price of the commodity. If we assume that if price of the commodity changes by 20% and demand also varies by 20%, then both the ratio are equal. In this case, elasticity of demand will be unitary elastic or equals to 1. Less than unitary elastic demand refers to that demand when percentage change in quantity demanded is less than the percentage change in its price. It means when price increases or decreases in increasing ratio but demand changes at the less ratio. When demand varies less than the change in its price, that is called less than unitary elastic demand. ED less than 1. Okay, less than 1 unitary elastic demand we can denote by ED less than 1. And if elasticity of demand is more than unitary elastic, it means the percentage change in demand is more than the percentage change in its price. If demand increases by more ratio due to change in its price, if the change in demand is more than the change in price, that will be called greater than 1 or more than unitary elastic demand. So there are five types of price elasticity of demand, but these two are extreme cases. Perfectly elastic demand, in which elasticity of demand is equals to infinity, and perfectly inelastic demand, in which elasticity of demand is equals to 0. These two degrees are called extreme situations of price elasticity of demand. Perfectly elastic demand is the extreme situation, and perfectly inelastic demand is also the extreme situation of elasticity of demand. Now we can show these 5 degrees with the help of diagram. Diagrams of degrees of price elasticity of demand. As I told you that these 2 degrees are extreme degrees. One is perfectly elastic demand and second is perfectly inelastic demand. When demand is called perfectly elastic and when demand is called perfectly inelastic. In this diagram, we have draw x-axis. On x-axis we have taken quantity and on y-axis we have taken price. And if price remains constant and demand can change, demand can increase or demand can decrease at any time. There is no foundation of change in demand. So if demand can increase or demand can decrease, but price will remain constant or price remains same. In this case, demand curve will be horizontal line which is parallel to the x-axis. And in this case, elasticity of demand will be called infinity. Infinity means demand can change at any ratio, but price will not change. Perfectly elastic demand is equals to infinity. The features of this price perfectly elastic demand is: one is demand curve will be always horizontal line or parallel to the x-axis. Second is unlimited quantity of the commodity can be sold at the prevailing price or at the existing price or at the same price. And next is a negligible increase in price would result in zero quantity demanded. It means if any change in price occur, then demand will be zero. So price elasticity of demand, the first degree of this is perfectly elastic demand, and in this case demand curve will be always horizontal line which is parallel to the x-axis, and in this case ED will be equals to infinity. Second extreme situation is perfectly inelastic demand. Inelastic like thread. If demand can't change, if demand can't vary, if price increases or decreases, price may increase, price may decrease, but demand can't change, then it will be called inelastic demand. So in case of perfectly inelastic demand, demand curve will be vertical line. Vertical line means parallel to the y-axis line. If demand is perfectly inelastic, demand can't change. So demand will be equals to zero. Quantity demanded of a commodity remains the same, either price rise or falls. Such goods are termed as neutral goods. For example, if a person is non-cigarette smoker, then demand for cigarette will be zero. If a person is non taker of alcoholic drinks, then demand for alcoholic drinks will be zero. And if you are taking that commodity which is neutral, which gives zero satisfaction to the consumer on y-axis, then demand curve will be vertical or parallel to the y-axis. So in case of perfectly inelastic demand, demand curve will be always parallel to y-axis and elasticity of demand will be zero. These are two extreme degrees. Next degrees are highly elastic demand, unitary elastic demand, and relatively inelastic demand or less than unitary elastic demand. When demand will be called highly elastic, and when demand will be called unitary elastic, and when demand will be called relatively inelastic, you are seeing here in this diagram. First diagram shows here demand curve is flatter. Demand curve, as you know, that always downward sloping, which shows inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Due to the inverse relationship between price and demand curve is always downward sloping. But in this case, when demand is highly elastic, demand curve will be more flatter, not steeper. It means the percentage change in quantity demanded is more than the percentage change in price. In this diagram, the quantity changes from Q1 to Q2, which is more than the percentage change in price. Price falls by P1 to P2. It is clear from this diagram the change in price. This demand curve is more steeper. If demand curve is steeper, or when the percentage change in quantity demanded is less than the percentage change in price, then demand will be called less than unitary elastic. This type of relatively inelastic demand exist in case of necessary goods. You must have to know about these three things that if demand is highly elastic, it occurs in case of luxurious goods. If demand is unitary elastic, it means when the percentage change in quantity demanded and the percentage change in price both are equal, that will be exist in case of normal goods. And if demand is relatively inelastic or less than unitary elastic, then it will exist in case of necessaries goods. These are the three degrees except two extreme degrees, but actually the degrees of price elasticity of demands are five. One is perfectly elastic demand, second is perfectly inelastic demand, a third is highly elastic demand or more than one unitary elastic demand. Next is unitary elastic demand, in this case ED is always equals to 1. And last is relatively inelastic demand, which is known as less than unitary elastic demand. You must have to know about the diagrams of these 5 degrees of elasticity of demand. In case of perfectly elastic demand, demand curve will be horizontal line. In case of perfectly inelastic demand, demand curve will be a vertical line parallel to the y-axis. In case of highly elastic demand, demand curve will be downward but more flatter. In case of unitary elastic demand, demand curve will be downward sloping and rectangular shaped diagram, which shows that each and every point on this curve which lies on this curve shows elasticity of demand equals to 1. And in case of relatively inelastic demand, demand curve will be downward but more steeper. Now next topic is factors affecting of elasticity of demand. As you have done in last session, factors affecting of theory of demand. But now we are discussing here factors affecting of elasticity of demand. The points of elasticity of demand is different from factors affecting of theory of demand, but some points are same. Some students mix the concept of theory of demand and elasticity of demand. That is not good. So you must have to clear in your mind that what is the difference between theory of demand and what is the difference between elasticity of demand. Elasticity of demand is different from theory of demand, but actually it both are interrelated with each other because demand concept basically depends upon its price, but the elasticity can be affected by so many other factors. Now we will discussing here the factors affecting of elasticity of demand. The first point is nature of the commodity. Nature of the commodity may be necessary goods, may be luxurious goods, or may be inferior goods. If a commodity is necessary, in case of necessary goods, as you know that necessary goods are those goods which are very necessary for us, which is very necessary for the survival of all human beings, like water, like salt, sugar, rice, wheat, etc., milk, fruits, vegetables, etc. These all things are called necessary goods. You can't shift your demand for necessary goods, either price rise or falls, either income rise or falls, either price of related goods rise or falls. It means if there is necessary product, then demand for necessary product will be called inelastic. Inelastic means your demand can't change due to change in its price or due to change in its income of the consumer. If demand can't vary If demand can't be shiftable, if demand can't change, that demand will be called inelastic demand. And if the nature of the commodity is luxurious goods or luxurious goods which are used by rich person or those person whose income is very higher, their demand for that commodity can be changed. If goods are comfortable or luxurious, then their demand can be changed due to change in its price and due to change in its income of the consumer. So if demand can change, then demand will be elastic. And if demand can't change, then demand will be inelastic. So nature of the commodity explain what type of commodity has inelastic demand and what type of commodity has in relatively elastic demand. And as we have discussed here, that comfortable goods or luxurious goods are always relatively elastic demand. Second point is availability of substitutes. If substitutes are available in the market, then your demand can change. Like if a substitute like tea or coffee, if substitutes are available in the market, then if price of tea increases, then we can demand more for coffee. It means our demand can change, our demand can vary. In this case, demand will be more elastic, or if substitutes are available, then demand is called relatively more elastic. And if there is no substitutes available in the market, then demand will be. So you have to mention here what type of commodity demand is elastic and what type of commodity demand is inelastic. If substitutes are available in the market, then demand will be more elastic. If substitutes are not available in the market, then demand will be inelastic. Third point is goods with different uses. As you know that some goods are available in the market which can use for different purposes. For example, electricity you can use for different purposes. For example, milk. Milk you can use in different purposes for making curd, for making cheese, for making tea, for making coffee. You can use for different purposes. Milk. Water you can use for different purposes. So many things are available in our country which can be available for different uses. If goods are available with different uses, their demand can change. As you know that if electricity is cheaper, then you will use more electricity. And if electricity is costly, then you will use limited electricity for limited purpose. If milk price is higher, then you will use limited in limited quantity. And if milk price is lower, then you can use more. So many goods have different uses. You can increase or decrease the quantity of that commodity which have different uses. It means demand can change, demand can vary. In this case, demand will be more elastic or less elastic? Demand will be more elastic. Next point is postponement of demand. If your demand can be postponed for the future, some products demand we can postpone. That if commodity is not necessary for us, then we can postpone our demand. If demand can be postponed, then demand will be called elastic. And if your postponement is not possible, like if we are hungry, then we can't postpone the demand for chapati for future. It means if we are thirsty or if we are hungry, then we will take chapati and we will take water at the same time. We can't postpone that type of product's demand. In this case, demand will be inelastic. So if postponement of demand is possible, then demand will be elastic. If postponement of demand is not possible, then demand will be inelastic. Next point is income of the consumer. As you know that some people are very highly income grouped people. Some people are called very lower income grouped people, and some people are middle class or medium income group people. So consumers category are of three types: higher income, lower income, and medium or middle class. Very high or very rich consumers. For rich consumers, nothing is impossible to buy. And for poor consumers who have very less income or who are very poor or in the grip of poverty, they are not able to buy anything. It means nothing is possible to buy for the poor people. And nothing is impossible to buy for rich consumer. In this case, for very rich person and for very poor person, demand always remains inelastic. But the medium size or middle class consumer, demand remains always elastic. Next point is habit of the consumer. Habits, our habits also affects our elasticity of demand. If we have a habit of consuming any commodity, like cigarette smoker always take cigarette, either cigarette price rises or falls. Alcoholic drink taker always take alcoholic drinks or liquor, either price rise or falls, because they have habit of that commodity. So if you are habitual of any product, then your demand can't be postponed, your demand can't be shiftable. In this case, your demand will be inelastic. And if you have no habit of any commodity, then your demand will be elastic. Next point is price level. Some commodities have very high price, some commodities have very lower price. If the price of the commodity is very higher or very lower, in this case, demand will be inelastic. Because higher price commodity, those who can buy, they will buy. And for lower price commodity, if a price is lower, then people will always take that commodity. So higher price commodities and lower price commodities, demand remains always inelastic. But the medium size or medium price level or mid price level commodities, demand remains always elastic, which can change according to the change in price. Now the next point is proportion of income spent on a commodity. As you have seen in your house that in some commodities you spend very less proportion of your income on that, like candle, like on matchbox, like on needle. These newspaper, toothpaste, toothbrush, your very less proportion of income spent on that commodity. If the proportion of your income which is spent on a commodity is very less, the demand for that commodity will be inelastic. And if you spend very high proportion of income on a commodity, then your demand will be more elastic. So proportion of income always affects our elasticity of demand, and it is the main factor. If we spend very less proportion of our money income on a commodity, then demand will be inelastic. And if proportion of income highly spent on a commodity, then demand will be more elastic. Next point is time period. According to Marshall, time period is divided into three categories. One is very short period, second is short period, and third is long period. Marshall has divided this time period into three categories. Must remember. Time period, one is very short period. Very short period is very short. With a clear from this name, very short period, it means demand can't change. If demand can't change, demand will be inelastic. In a short period, you have some time but not too much. In short period, your demand can change but not too much. So demand will be relatively inelastic or less than unitary elastic. And if the time period is available, long period means in long period you have too much time, you can easily change your demand, you can easily change anything. So if you have too much time, your demand can change, and if demand can change, then demand will be more elastic. And the last point of factors affecting of elasticity of demand is complementary goods. Complementary goods, as you know, that complementary goods are those goods which always use together. For example, car and petrol, pen and refill, camera and reel, needle and thread. And if goods are complementary, which always use together, if you have car, you must have to buy petrol. If you have needle, you must have to buy thread. It means without one thing, you can't use another thing. So in case of complementary goods, your demand can't change, your demand can't vary. In this case, demand will be inelastic or relatively inelastic. Next, in a brief, you can see here factors affecting price elasticity. Is the good a necessity? So in case of necessity good, the demand will be relatively inelastic. If there are substitutes, too much substitutes are available. When there are few substitutes, demand will be relatively inelastic. If there are more substitutes are available in the market, then demand will be more elastic. If the percentage or proportionate of income which is spent on a commodity is lower, then demand will be inelastic. And if time period is very short period, then demand will be relatively inelastic. And if time period is too much or long period, your demand can change, then demand will be more elastic. So these are some points which indicates that how necessity goods, substitute goods, and the proportion of income spent on a commodity and the time period, how these factors affects our price elasticity of demand. We have discussed right now all these points in detail. This is in the brief explanation of these points. Now the next topic is measuring methods of elasticity of demand. That is very important. How we can measure elasticity of demand? Measuring methods tells us the method of measurement of elasticity of demand. Because elasticity of demand shows the percentage change in quantity demanded due to percentage change in its price. And it can be measured with the help of these methods which are mentioned here. These methods are, one is total outlay, which is called total expenditure method. Total outlay. Outlay means expenditure. Total outlay or total expenditure method is the first method. By using this method, we can measure elasticity. Second method is percentage or proportionate method. Third method is point method, point elasticity method or graphic method or geometric method. It has so many names: point method, graphic method, geometric method. And fourth method is arc method. Arc method is also known as midpoint method. And next is revenue method. Actually, revenue method is just the same as total outlay method. So I have mentioned here revenue method name because sometimes total expenditure, instead of this name in exams, revenue method is written. So no, here is no doubt that total expenditure and total revenue both are same. Now we will discuss here all these methods in detail. Now the first method is total outlay method or expenditure method. In total outlay method, first of all, we will make a table or schedule. We take price like A commodity if we are assuming that there are three commodities, A commodity, B commodity and C commodity. If the price of these commodities are 10, 5. Again for B commodity price is same 10 or 5 and for C commodity price is same 10 and 5. But quantity is different. At higher price 10 rupees price the quantity is like, for example, quantity is 10. And at lower price, when price falls from 10 to 5, then quantity will increase by 10 to 25. In this case, how you can estimate total expenditure? The formula of estimating total expenditure is price into quantity. If you multiply price into quantity, then you can get total expenditure or total outlay. 10 into 10, here price is 10, quantity is 10. Multiplying these price and quantity, we can get 100. If we multiply 5 rupees price into 25 quantity, then we can get 125. In B case, price is 10, quantity is 10, 10 into 10, total expenditure is 100. And if price is 5, quantity is 20, here we multiply 5 into 20, we can get 100. In C case, if price is 10, quantity is 10, 10 into 10, 100 total expenditure, and the price is 5, quantity is 15, then total expenditure is 75. 5 into 15, 75. Now, in these cases, we can show that in what case elasticity of demand will be greater than 1, and in what case elasticity of demand will be less than 1, and in what case elasticity of demand will be equals to 1 or unitary elastic. With the help of this table, we can show that with the help of this total outlay method. If there is an inverse relationship between price and total expenditure, if there is inverse relationship between price and total expenditure, here you have to see only price and total expenditure. Okay, quantity is necessary for getting total expenditure. But when we are explaining total outlay method and when we explain elasticity of demand with the help of this method, we will see only price and total expenditure. Here price is 10 and 5 and total expenditure is 100 and 125. Here price is falling from 10 to 5 but total expenditure is rising from 100 to 125. It means there is inverse relationship between price and total expenditure. In this case, elasticity of demand will be greater than 1 or more than 1. In second case, in situation of B, when price falls or rise, it doesn't affect on total expenditure. Now you are watching here, total expenditure is constant. At 10 rupees price, total expenditure is 100 and at 5 rupees price, total expenditure is 100. It means when the total expenditure is same, not affected by the change in price, then elasticity of demand will be unitary elastic. And in C case, when price falls, like from 10 to 5, total expenditure also falls from 100 to 75. It means if there is a positive relationship or if there is a direct relationship between price and total expenditure, then elasticity of demand will be less than 1. Okay, so total outlay method explain that how price affects total expenditure and what type of relationship explain that elasticity of demand is greater than 1 and elasticity of demand is equals to 1 or less than 1. If there is an inverse relationship between price and total expenditure, then demand will be more than 1. If there is no relationship between price and total expenditure remains constant, either price rise or falls, then demand will be unitary elastic. And if there is a positive or direct relationship between price and quantity demanded or total expenditure, then elasticity of demand will be less than 1. This is total expenditure method or total outlay method. We can show this method with the help of this diagram. In this method, relationship between change in price of a commodity, consequent change in expenditure done on it measures its elasticity. If we draw diagram from left to right, ED is less than 1. In the beginning, ED is less than 1. After that, ED will be constant or equals to 1. And after that, ED will be more than 1. When curve is steeper, ED is less than 1. When curve is constant or vertical, then ED will be 1 equals to 1. And when curve is downward sloping or more flatter, then ED will be more than 1. Next is percentage method. Second method is percentage method. Percentage method is also known as proportionate method. All these methods are explained by Marshall. Marshall is the great economist who described what is demand, what factors affects demand, the theory of demand and elasticity of demand and supply and equilibrium price. All these topics are given or explained by Dr. Marshall. With the help of this percentage or proportionate method, we can write here ED is equals to, here we have put the sign of minus. Minus sign denotes that there is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Now we can use this formula to calculate elasticity of demand. This formula is percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in its price. And in other words, we can write in this form also delta Q upon delta P into P upon Q. Here delta Q shows change in quantity and delta P shows change in price, and P shows price and Q shows quantity. Now in this table, price is 75, 50, 25, 10 and quantity demanded is 2, 4, 7, 8. If you want to calculate elasticity of demand when price increases from 25 to 50, so in this case, if you take only two prices like 50 or 25 and two quantity like 4 or 7, then you can take change in quantity is 7 minus 4, 3 and change in price will be 50 minus 25, 25. And first price is 50 and the first quantity is 4. By using this formula, you can calculate elasticity of demand, and here elasticity of demand answer is 1.5, and this 1.5 shows that elasticity of demand is more than 1. More than 1 means elasticity of demand is greater than 1. Third method is point method. Point method shows that when we have given a straight line demand curve, on this straight line demand curve, we can estimate elasticity of demand by using the formula of lower segment upon upper segment. Here C, AB is a full line. Here AE is a complete straight line. We have divided this line into 5 parts. At the center point, ED will be equals to 1. Above this center, ED will be more than 1. At point A, when point lie on y-axis, ED will be infinity. At D point, ED will be less than 1. And at point E, elasticity of demand will be 0. So we can conclude from this topic. Now today we have discussed all the topics of elasticity of demand, like meaning of elasticity of demand, types of elasticity of demand, factors affecting of elasticity of demand, degrees of elasticity of demand, and the measuring methods of elasticity of demand. I hope that you understand this topic very clearly. Thank you so much.